The competition for drivers is slowly but surely increasing each month, but so far that increased competition has done little to affect the actual recruiting and hiring of drivers. The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance is gearing up for this year's Brake Safety Week to be held in late August and has some tips for any carriers or drivers trying to prepare. And containerized imports are up double digits compared to this time last year, but is that having a real impact on the overall freight demand? We'll check in with Jason Miller to find out. For Randall Reilly, I'm Joshua Miller, and this is the 30-Day Reset. Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the 30-Day Reset. We're back each month to bring you all the latest driver recruiting, freight, and economic data. And as a reminder, everything we go over today will be available in the 30-Day Reset download. If you're watching us over on our site, you can fill out the form below the video player. And if you're on YouTube, just check for the link down in the description. Now, let's get into the data. First up, it's Trucking by the Numbers, brought to you by Stratus Strategize. There were 23% more companies that posted truck driver jobs in April compared to January, and April had the highest number of unique companies posting jobs since last September. The number of truck driver job postings was up by 6%, hitting its highest level since last October. And search activity remained unchanged from last month, but search click costs increased by 2%. Final numbers for April show that the hire costs rose as a result of the higher lead-to-hire ratios, but even with that increase, the overall hire costs have remained relatively low. The freight market remains soft, and stop me if you heard this one before, but the conditions for carriers could remain negative for at least the next few quarters. FTR is predicting that the conditions will improve through the summer before leveling off to a neutral position in Q4 and then finally flipping to a positive territory for trucking companies in Q1 of 2025. But with the low manufacturing output forecast we're seeing, there could be very little meaningful movement in the freight market until at least Q2 of next year. As far as the numbers concerning loads and spot rates, they were down all the way around. Overall load volume dipped by 5% year over year and was down 28% compared to the 5-year average. Overall spot rates came in with decreases of 5% year over year and 7% compared to that 5-year average. Dry van loads and spot rates were both down 2% year over year, while refrigerated loads fell by 8% and spot rates declined by 1% year over year, and flatbed loads and rates both fell by 6% year over year. For a more detailed look at the recruiting and freight data, check out the 30-Day Reset download, which is again available down below. Now, let's take a look at one of this month's top news stories. The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance is getting ready for this year's upcoming Brake Safety Week to be held August 25th through the 31st. The inspections will focus on brake system components, the brake pads and linings in particular. Those vehicles found to have brake-related out-of-service violations will be removed from roadways until those violations are able to be corrected. In some jurisdictions, the use of performance-based brake testers, or PBBTs, will be used to assess the braking performance of the vehicles. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's 2023 vehicle violation data reveals 6 out of the top 20 vehicle violations were brake-related, and last year's International Road Check results showed that brake system violations was the top vehicle violation and comprised a full quarter, 25.2% of all vehicle out-of-service violations during the 3-day snapshot of roadside inspections. In an effort to help carriers and drivers prepare for the upcoming Brake Check Week, the CVSA recommends viewing the inspector's inspection procedure, downloading a checklist outlining the tools needed to inspect S-cam brakes and how to measure pushrod stroke, learning all about the components of the vehicle that inspectors will check, and downloading a flyer with 10 brake lining and pad tips. Information for all those suggestions is available online, and I've also left some links for you down below. If you'd like to read up more on this story, you can, of course, refer to our 30-Day Reset download, or you can check out the full story as reported by Truckers News. The link to the original article is available in our download, but it's also down in the description on YouTube or down below our video player on our Randall Reilly site. Now let's check in with Jason Miller for his economic update.
Welcome everybody to our May/June freight market update. What I want to lead off with is talking about dry van spot prices. And even though May is road check month, we are starting to see a little bit of a glimmer of hope from a demand standpoint. What I really want to emphasize is this market still seems to have a while till it's going to turn. If we look at DAT's dry van spot rate, relative to their dry van broker by contract rate. We still have about a 19% premium for those contract rates relative to the average of those two series. That is well above sort of the 10% historical threshold that has signaled the start of a bull market. Right now, dry van spot rates in May are just $2.01 a mile. That's only up a couple cents from where they were in April. So we don't really have signs of a very strong seasonal increase in spot prices yet. And the biggest reason for this is demand conditions continue to remain weak. So with Q1 data completely in, the seasonally adjusted trucking 10-mile index that I co-author picked up another seasonally adjusted drop. This is putting us down, somewhere between 4 and maybe, at the high end, 5% less demand than in that peak period in early 2022 that we saw. From a benchmarking standpoint, this index continues to track very, very, very well with different government statistics, which makes me feel very good talking about this. And so right now we can say that the decline in demand that we've experienced during this freight recession is effectively double what we experienced during the 2019 freight recession. And this may be confusing because one of the things, if you follow a lot of the industry news, you'll read about is that we have containerized imports right now in the US are up double digits year over year from where they were last year. And there's been a narrative developed that containerized imports are this big source of trucking demand. And the reality is they really aren't. When you slice and dice the data, you can come down to the conclusion there's at utmost 5 million long-haul truckload inland shipments of containerized imports at the end of the day, once you account for local consumption as well as intermodal rail. In comparison, domestic manufacturing plants generate over 100 million domestic truckload shipments each year. What has happened is that containerized imports have tended to be very strongly correlated with that domestic manufacturing activity. And that relationship, though, has not played out so far in 2024. So I'm anticipating while imports are going to remain strong, that's not going to tip the market over until we see domestic manufacturing pick up. So I wish I had some better news, but as we are looking now more towards the second half of the year, I'm just not really seeing that catalyst right now that's likely to tip the freight market.
Thanks so much for that, Jason. As always, your expertise is very much appreciated. And with that, we've reached the end of another edition of the 30-Day Reset. We'll be back next month to go over all the new data you can handle. Until then, you can go through all of the stuff we covered on today's episode for yourself with the 30-Day Reset download, which is, again, available down below. There's also consultation and strategized demo links and forms down there too. So, if you'd like to talk to someone on our team about how we can partner with you to help you reach your goals, or if you'd like to just poke around our Strategize platform and see what valuable insights you can uncover, click those links in the YouTube description or fill out the forms below the player on our site. That'll just about do it. Until next time, thanks for watching.